Okay, let's proceed with this chapter. The next section we have is the refraction of light. So we know that when light travels in the same homogeneous medium, it travels along a straight path. Whenever there is no obstruction for a light, it is going to go on and on. It is not going to take turns in between. It is going to go very straight. However, when it passes obliquely from one transparent medium to another, the direction of the light is going to change. Okay, the path of the direction of the path, okay, at that particular interface of the two mediums is going to change, and this is called as refraction of light. For example, supposing I have air on top and there is water down here, okay, and I pass a ray of light. Supposing I pass a ray of light at this interface, I make it incident at this interface of air and water, then what is going to happen over here is this ray of light is going to change its direction of path. It is not going to go straight. It is going to be little bit bent. It is going to bend a little bit at the interface. Okay, and this is called as the refraction of light. So how do we define refraction of light? The phenomena of the change in path of a light as it passes obliquely from one transparent medium to another is called refraction of light. This is called as the refraction of light. So now the path along which the light travels in the first medium is called as the incident ray, and that in the second medium will be called as the refracted ray. So let us consider I have a air glass interface over here. I make a ray of light incident at this point. At that point over here, I have marked a normal. So the path along which the light travels in the first medium, that is air, is incident ray, and the path along which the light travels in the second medium is the refracted ray. The angle which the incident ray is going to make with the normal is going to be called as the angle of incidence, and the angle this normal makes with the refracted ray is going to be called as the angle of refraction. So I is the angle of incidence and R is the angle of refraction. So in this process of refraction of light, there are certain observations which are made. So now we have seen that ray of light goes from one medium to the other medium, correct? So obviously one medium is going to be much more denser as compared to the other medium. So in other words, we use the words such as denser medium and a rarer medium. So this ray of light can either go from denser medium to rarer medium or rarer medium to denser medium. So in either of the case, certain observation was made. So in the first case, if you see, the ray of light is going from a rarer medium to a denser medium. Considering glass as a denser medium, the ray of light is going from air to the glass. Okay, it is going from the air medium to the glass medium. So it is going from rarer to the denser medium. So in this particular case, it was observed that the ray which was refracted, now this is incident ray, this is incident ray, okay, the ray which was made incident through a rarer medium into a denser medium, so this refracted ray over here was seen to be bent towards the normal. So when a ray of light was passed from a rarer to a denser medium, it was observed that this refracted ray bent towards the normal. That means if this is your angle of incidence and this is your angle of refraction, it was noticed that angle of incidence was greater than angle of refraction. Angle of refraction became smaller than the angle of incidence. That means your refracted ray bent towards the normal. When the ray of light, in the second situation, when the ray of light was passed from a denser medium to a rarer medium. For instance, let us consider the ray of light is passed from glass to the air. It was noticed that this refracted ray bent away from the normal. That means the angle of incidence, this is angle of incidence and this is angle of refraction. It was noticed that angle of refraction was greater than angle of incidence. Okay, it bent away from the normal. And the third case was when a ray of light was traveling along the normal, would pass undeflected. That means angle of incidence is equal to angle of refraction was equal to 0 degrees. Okay, the ray which was sent along the normal went undeflected. So these were the observations which were made during the refraction of light. So now let us look at the laws of refraction. So there are two laws over here, same as the reflection. We had two laws there. So the first law of refraction is that quite similar to the law of reflection, the incident ray, the refracted ray and the normal to the interface at the point of incidence all lie in the same plane. So all these three are going to lie in the same plane. The second law is very important, which states that the ratio of sine of angle of incidence and the sine of angle of refraction is a constant for a given pair of media. So if your ray is passing from one medium to another, and if you take the ratio of sine of I to the sine of R, that is sine of angle of incidence to the sine of angle of refraction, it is going to be a constant. So if we want to write it mathematically, we see that sine of I, that is sine of angle of incidence, to the sine of angle of refraction is given by a constant. And that constant is called as the refractive index, which is denoted by mu, or it is also denoted by n. Okay, so it is going to be the refractive index of the second medium with respect to first medium. That is refractive index of second medium with respect to the first medium. So if your ray of light is going from air to glass, then the refractive index of second medium, that is glass, with respect to air will be equal to sine of angle of incidence to the sine of angle of refraction. If your ray of light is going from glass to air, then the refractive index of air with respect to glass will be equal to sine of I upon sine of R. Okay, in some reference books it is also written as the refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium. This notation can also be used, but this is going to be a constant. Okay, the refractive index is going to be a constant. That is the ratio sine of I upon sine of R is called as the refractive index of second medium with respect to the first medium. The second law was deduced by a Dutch scientist whose name was Willibald Snell, okay, in 1621. It was discovered in 1621, and this law, the second law of refraction, is also called as Snell's law of refraction. This is also called as Snell's law of refraction. So what is Snell's law of refraction? Sine of I upon sine of R is equal to the refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first medium. So now let us see refractive index little more in detail. Okay, so this refractive index which we discussed, which is sine I upon sine R, can also be defined in terms of speed of light. Okay, so the refractive index of a medium, of a particular medium, for a light of given wavelength, okay, any light of given wavelength may be defined as the ratio of speed of light in vacuum to its speed in that particular medium. Okay, so refractive index of a light of given wavelength can be defined as its speed, the ratio of its speed of light in vacuum divided by, so it's a ratio of speed of light in vacuum to speed of light in medium. Going to be speed of light in medium. So I can say that mu is equal to speed of light in vacuum is taken as c, that is 3 into 10 raised to 8, divided by speed of light in medium, let's take as v. So this mu, that is refractive index of the medium, is defined as the speed of light in vacuum, that is c, to the speed of light in that particular medium. So refractive index of a medium with respect to vacuum, this is also called as the absolute refractive index. It is because you are defining this refractive index of medium with respect to vacuum. Okay. So next is refractive index in terms of wavelength. Okay, so one thing to note over here is that whenever light travels from one medium to another, its wavelength is going to change, but its frequency is not going to change. Just fix this in your mind. When light travels from one medium to another, whether it travels from glass to water or water to air or air to glass, any medium from one medium to another, always remember the frequency of that light is never going to change. The wavelength is going to change, but the frequency will never change. The same concept can be used over here. We know that mu is equal to speed of light in vacuum upon speed of light in the medium. So speed of light in vacuum can be written as the wavelength in vacuum multiplied by the frequency of that particular light in vacuum, okay, divided by the wavelength of that light in medium multiplied by the frequency in medium. That will be same as the frequency in vacuum, because frequency is not changing as the light is traveling from vacuum to medium. So mu will remain same. So mu will get cancelled. So you can say that the refractive index as the ratio of the wavelength of light in vacuum to the wavelength of light in medium. So refractive index of the medium may be defined as the ratio of wavelength of light in vacuum to its wavelength in that of medium. Now we also have something called as relative refractive index. That means supposing you have two refractive indices, okay, you can relate them together through a ratio which will be called as the relative refractive index. So the relative refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first medium, that is mu 2 1, refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first medium, which can also be written as second medium with respect to the first medium, okay, is defined as the ratio of speed of light in medium 1, so V1, the same light, okay, as the light is traveling from the first medium to the second medium. This is the speed of light in the first medium, speed of light in the second medium, refractive index of the first medium, refractive index of the second medium, or mu1 and mu2. So refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first medium is given by the speed of light in the first medium to the speed of light in the second medium, that is V2, okay, which is denoted by mu2 1, okay, which is same as, okay, mu2 1 can be written as refractive index of second medium with respect to the first medium can be written as mu2 upon mu1, refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium, which will be given as V1 upon V2, okay, this can be written. So the refractive index is a ratio of similar quantities. If you see, both are speeds, so refractive index will not have any units, okay, or will not have any dimensions. It is dimensionless quantity since it is a ratio. Now let us see different factors on which the refractive index of a medium depends. So the first factor on which the refractive index of a medium depends is nature of the medium. What kind of medium it is, obviously, nature of medium, okay, whether it is optically denser medium or optically rarer medium, okay. Next, it is dependent upon the wavelength of the light used. Third, it is dependent upon the temperature. The refractive index is also dependent upon the temperature. And the fourth factor it is dependent upon is the nature of surrounding medium. So these are the four factors on which the refractive index of the medium depends upon. It has to be noted over here that refractive index is a characteristic of a pair of media. Okay, it is going to be the characteristic of a pair of media and depends upon the wavelength of light. Okay, it is not dependent upon angle of incidence. Okay, remember, it is not dependent upon the angle of incidence. It is the characteristic of the media and will depend upon the wavelength of light and not the angle of incidence over here. Okay. One more thing to note over here is that the optical density, the difference between the optical density and the mass density. Okay, students often try to relate optical density with mass density. They think that they are similar, they are same, but remember, optical density is different from mass density. Okay, so what is optical density? Optical density is the ratio of speed of light in the two medium. Okay, while the mass density is mass per unit volume. Okay, optical density is the ratio of the speed of light, okay, in different mediums, but mass density is mass upon volume. Okay, so it is not necessary that if particular medium has a higher mass density, then it compulsorily has to have a higher optical density. It's not so. Okay, a medium having a lower mass density can have a higher optical density and vice versa. This can be a situation. Okay, for example, in case of turpentine, the mass density is less than that of water. If you compare the mass density of turpentine and water, the mass density of turpentine is lower than that of water, but turpentine's optical density is higher than that of water. Okay, so if you look at this situation, it is completely different. Okay, so you cannot relate mass density, cannot directly relate mass density with the optical density. It doesn't mean that if mass density is more, the optical density will also be more. So that has to be noted over here. Now let us look at the cause of refraction. So as light travels with different speeds in different media, obviously as light enters from one medium to another, we have seen that the speed of light would change. Okay, so we can see that its wavelength changes, its speed changes. So it travels with different speeds in different media. So the bending of light or refraction occurs due to the change in speed of light as it passes from one medium to another. So this is the major cause of refraction, that is change of speed. Change of speed of light as it travels from one medium to other. Okay, this is the reason why refraction happens, because as light travels from one medium to another, it changes its speed. Okay, so larger the change in speed of light as it passes from one medium to another, the more will be the bending due to refraction. So if the change in speed is more will be the bending happening. So let us look at this using the Snell's law of refraction. So we can write the Snell's law of refraction, that is mu21, refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium, as sine of I upon sine of R, which is given by the speed of light in the first medium divided by the speed of same light in the second medium, V1 upon V2. So from this equation, we can note different results. Okay, so the first result you can see from here is that if V1 is greater than V2, that is speed of light in the first medium is greater than the speed of light in the second medium, then clearly this ratio which is there, V1 upon V2, is going to be greater than 1. V1 upon V2 is going to be greater than 1. That means that mu21 will be greater than 1, which simply means that sine of I upon sine of R will be greater than 1. Okay, since V1 is greater than V2, okay, obviously V1 upon V2 is going to be greater than 1. That means the refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium will be greater than 1. That means that sine of I upon sine of R will be greater than 1. From here we can imply that sine of I will be greater than sine of R. Just take this sine of R across. Okay, that is I will be greater than R. That is, angle of incidence will be greater than angle of refraction, which means that the refracted ray would bend towards the normal. Correct? So if this is the situation, if this is my interface, this is the normal, then the angle of incidence would be greater than the angle of refraction. Something like this. So this is your I and this would be your R. That's what the situation is when V1 is greater than V2. So speed of light in medium 1, speed of light in medium 2. So if speed of light in medium 1 is more than speed of light in medium 2, then angle of incidence would be greater than angle of refraction. That means the ray of light as it crosses the medium, it is as it enters the other medium, would bend towards the normal. That means that the second medium is optically denser medium. This is what we had studied, right? And the first medium is going to be optically rarer medium. So that is what we had studied, that when a ray of light travels from a rarer medium to a denser medium, the angle of incidence will be more than the angle of refraction. So hence, a ray of light bends towards the normal as it refracts from a rarer medium to a denser medium. The second situation, what is going to happen if V1 is lesser than V2? Second situation, if V1 is lesser than V2, what is going to happen? The numerator will be smaller, denominator will be greater. That means that V1 upon V2 will be less than 1. It will be in the decimal form, 0 point something. Okay, that means that mu 2 1 will be lesser than 1, which simply means that sine of I will be lesser than sine of R. Okay, from here we can infer that I will be lesser than R. Okay, so if I want to draw the interface over here, what would happen? The angle of incidence will be smaller than the angle of refraction. So this is your angle of incidence, this is your angle of refraction. Angle of incidence will be smaller than the angle of refraction when V1 is lesser than V2. That means that V2 is now going to be optically rarer because speed over here is more. Okay, arrows are important to the rays. Okay, and V1 or medium 1 is going to be optically denser. That means our ray of light is traveling from an optically denser medium to a rarer medium, and you see that the ray of light is bending away from normal. Okay, so what we can say from here, a ray of light bends away from the normal as it refracts from a denser medium to a rarer medium. That is what we had seen, right? In this case, it was traveling from air to glass, and here it is going from glass to air. So when it was going from rarer to denser, it bent towards the normal, and when it traveled from glass to air, denser to rarer, it bent away from the normal. Okay, now let us look at the physical significance of refractive index. What refractive index tells us, what information the refractive index gives us. So the first point is that the value of refractive index gives us the information about the direction of bending of refracted ray. So if we just now saw that if refractive index of second medium with respect to the first medium is greater than 1, it bends towards the normal, and if the refractive index of second medium with respect to the first medium is lesser than 1, it is going to bend away from the normal. Okay, so direction of bending is known from the refractive index. The second point is that the refractive index of the medium is related to the speed of light. We saw that n21 is given by V1 upon V2. Okay, it is given by the ratio of speed of light in the first medium to the speed of light in the second medium. So for example, if we say that the refractive index of glass is 3 upon 2, or the refractive index of glass with respect to air is 3 upon 2. What does that mean? That will be the ratio of refractive index of or the ratio of speed of light in air upon speed of light in glass. Okay, so we can say that the ratio of speed of light in glass, okay, the ratio of speed of light in glass to the speed of light in air would be 2 upon 3, or the ratio of speed of light in air upon to the speed of light in glass would be 3 upon 2. Okay, that is what is known from here. Or we can also say that the speed of light in glass is 2/3 of the speed of light in vacuum. Okay, speed of light in glass is 2/3 of speed of light in vacuum or air. Okay, this inference can also be taken from this particular ratio, that is 2/3 or 3/2, which is given to us, that is refractive index. So this is the physical significance of refractive index. Next is the principle of reversibility of light, which states that if the final path of ray of light after it has suffered several reflections and refraction is reversed, it retraces its path exactly. What does this mean? Supposing if we have a rarer denser medium interface, okay, so this is my normal. So if I make a ray of light incident at this point over here, so this is my rarer medium, this is medium 1, let's say, and this is denser medium, this is my medium 2. So obviously the ray of light is going to bend towards the normal. So you have to take care how you draw your ray. Okay, so your ray has to be bending towards the normal, okay, with the arrows. So angle of incidence should be more than the angle of refraction. So now supposing I put a mirror down here, supposing I put a mirror down here, a plane mirror, so that the ray of light retraces its path, it goes back, okay, in the reverse direction. So what is going to be happening over here is the ray of light would follow the same path, it would exactly go like this. It will get refracted over here and it will emerge out through the same path as the incident light. Okay, the emergent ray from here, the ray which is going to emerge out, okay, the refracted ray in the reverse path would be coinciding exactly with the incident ray of the first case. Okay, so this is principle of reversibility, which is going to state that if the final path of the ray of light after it has suffered several reflection and refraction is reversed, it retraces the path exactly. It is going to retrace the same path exactly. Okay, so from here we can also say that the refractive index of the second medium with respect to the first medium, or we can say refractive index of second medium with respect to the first medium would be reciprocal of, okay, would be reciprocal of the refractive index of first medium with respect to second medium, which can also be written as mu1, 2. Just the notations are different. Okay, so we can say that the refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium would become the reciprocal of the refractive index of the first medium with respect to second medium. Now let us see the refraction through a rectangular glass slab, and what do we understand by a lateral shift. We are going to learn a new term over here called lateral shift. So this becomes the application of refraction. Where do we see a refraction? So if we have a glass slab and you make a light incident on that glass slab, what exactly is going to happen, that we will see now. Okay, so if we consider a glass slab PQRS, so if we consider a glass slab let's name this glass slab PQRS. Okay, I select a point over here. Okay, so at this point we are going to have a normal, and I'm going to make a light ray incident over here like this. Okay, so I'm making a ray of light incident over here. Let's say the name of the ray of light is AB. So this is going to be my normal. So it makes an angle of incidence. So now this is my glass slab. So this is my glass. This is air outside over here. Okay, so since it is going from rarer medium into a denser medium, it is going to bend towards the normal. So it is going to bend something like this, and it is going to fall on the other surface over here, that is SR. Okay, let me draw this angle of refraction. Let's say this angle of incidence is I1, angle of refraction is R1, because here there are going to be two refractions taking place. one at an interface PQ and another at an interface of SR. So I have considered a rectangular slab over here, PQRS. I'll repeat one more time. Ray AB is made incident on phase PQ at the angle of incidence I1. On entering the glass slab, it bends towards the normal and travel, okay, let's name this BC. Okay, it is going to travel along BC and making an angle of refraction R1. Okay, so now this ray, that is refracted ray BC, is made incident on the face SR. So here let us draw a normal, another normal. So here this is going to be the angle of incidence, the second angle of incidence for the interface SR. Okay, so now here after the second refraction takes place, now refraction is taking place from denser to rarer medium. So the ray which is coming out from here has to bend away from normal. So this ray is going to bend away from normal. I'll draw the arrows at the end. So this is going to bend away from normal like this. Okay, so angle of refraction R2. So let's name this as D. So my ray of light entered like this, so arrows should be drawn in this manner. Okay, so the emergent ray, so this is called as the emergent ray CD, has bent away from the normal, making an angle of refraction of R2. So if you look at this figure carefully, you will see that the emergent ray CD comes out to be parallel to the incident ray AB. That means if supposing I produce this incident ray AB, if I just produce this incident ray AB like this, okay, you will see that the emergent ray which has come out from this interface SR, that is CD, will be exactly parallel to your ray which you had made incident on this interface PQ, that is your ray AB. So your AB will be parallel to CD. This has to happen. Compulsorily it will happen. Okay, so your emergent ray will always come out parallel to the incident ray AB. Okay, but there will be some lateral displacement. There will be some lateral displacement which has taken place over here. Okay, there will be some displacement which will be taken place over here, and this displacement, this shift of the emergent ray from the incident ray, this lateral shift which you can see over here, is called as the lateral displacement. So basically this is your lateral displacement. Okay, so this shift in the path of light on emerging from the refracting medium with parallel faces is called as the lateral displacement. So how do we define lateral shift now? Okay, so lateral shift is the perpendicular distance. It is this perpendicular distance between the incident and the emergent ray when the light is made incident obliquely on the refracting slab having parallel faces. Which are the parallel faces? PQ and SR are the parallel faces. So if you make light incident on the parallel faces of a reflecting glass slab, okay, then the incident ray is going to be parallel to the emergent ray, and the perpendicular distance between these two rays is called as the lateral shift or the lateral displacement. Another thing to be noted over here is that from the figure only you can make out that angle I1 over here, which is formed over here, this angle I1 will be equal to angle R2. Okay, so this is the another observation which is made. You can look at it geometrically. You can look at it. That is angle I1. This is parallel line. Okay, this is as good as a transversal parallel lines. Okay, so this angle would be same as angle R2. I1 will be same as angle I2. Okay, so this lateral shift depends upon various factors. Okay, so lateral shift would increase with number one, the increase in thickness of a glass slab. So So more is the thickness of glass slab, more would be the lateral displacement or the lateral shift. It is also noted over here that the maximum lateral shift that can happen, maximum lateral shift, so lateral shift let's say is x, lateral displacement, so maximum lateral displacement that can happen will be equal to the thickness of the glass slab. It cannot exceed the thickness of the glass slab. So if your thickness of the glass slab is 4 centimeter or 3 centimeter, then the maximum lateral displacement would be 3 centimeter or 4 centimeter. Okay, that is the relation. So the displacement of the emergent ray cannot exceed the thickness of the glass slab. This is to be noted over here. I'll repeat, the displacement of the emergent ray, this displacement, lateral displacement, cannot exceed the thickness of the glass slab. The second point is that the lateral displacement increases with increase in the value of angle of incidence. So increase in angle of incidence increases the lateral displacement. Okay, that is this angle of incidence. Okay, and third point is that the lateral displacement also increases with the increase in the value of refractive index of the slab. So more is the refractive index of slab, more will be the lateral displacement happening. Okay, so that is those are the factors with which with the increase of which the lateral displacement is going to increase. So now supposing we have combination of media, like for example we have a combination of air, water and glass. So let me draw parallel interface. It is very important to have parallel interfaces over here. Okay, so let's say the top one is air, then we have water, let's say, so air is one, second medium is water, and next we have glass, the third medium is glass. Okay, so if I make a ray of light incident over here, okay, to the normal, okay, it is going to bend towards the normal. Again over here the refraction is going to happen, again it is going to bend towards the normal because it is entering into the denser medium, and now it is going to bend because it is going from glass to air again. Finally it's air outside, right? So it is going to bend away from normal. Okay, so in this case also you will see that as all the boundaries are parallel planes, the emergent ray is going to be parallel to the incident ray. So it is going to be parallel to our incident ray. Emergent ray is going to be parallel to our incident ray. So this line and this line is going to be parallel to each other. So thus the angle of emergence in this case also is going to be equal to the angle of incidence. Okay, but the main thing to note over here is that if you take the product of the refractive indices, for example the refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium multiplied by refractive index of third medium with respect to second medium, and refractive index of third medium with respect to first medium with respect to third medium, that is refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium, refractive index of third medium with respect to second medium, and refractive index of first medium with respect to third medium. Take one by one. The product would come out to be 1. This is a very important statement. Okay, so if you have refraction through combination of media, I can say that the refractive index of second medium with respect to first medium multiplied by the refractive index of third medium with respect to second medium multiplied by the refractive index of the first medium with respect to the third medium, okay, would be equal to 1. Okay, or in terms of this I can also write over here that refractive index of glass with respect to water, if I want to write down refractive index of glass with respect to water in terms of air, then I can say that it would be the ratio of refractive index of glass with respect to air divided by refractive index of water with respect to air. Okay, because why? Because this is going to be refractive index of glass upon refractive index of air divided by refractive index of water divided by refractive index of air. This is going to get cancelled and you will get refractive index of glass with respect to refractive index of water. which will be same as this. Okay, so you can express it in this manner also. So thus, by knowing the refractive indices of any two media like glass and water with respect to air, okay, the refractive index of glass with respect to water or vice versa can be calculated using this formula. Next we will see the practical application of refraction. So where do we practically see this refraction? Okay, so the first one we have is the real and apparent depths. So in normal situation, a perfect example would be a swimming pool. So when you see a swimming pool which is completely filled with water, you will notice that the floor of the swimming pool appears to be raised. Correct? If you look into the swimming pool, the actual depth of the swimming pool will not be the same which you see. It will be much more than the depth which you see. Okay, so the floor appears to be raised. Or if you take a beaker full of water and put a coin inside, that coin would appear to be raised. Why is it so? That is simply because of refraction of light. So it is on account of refraction of light that the apparent depth of an object placed in a denser medium. So if you keep an object in a denser medium, the depth of that object would be seen lesser than the real depth. Okay, so if you look at this figure, if I have an object at this point O over here, okay, if the object is placed at O, that is, let's say at the bottom of the beaker, okay, this is a beaker and object is placed at the bottom of this beaker at point O, which is filled completely with water, the rays would be coming out as OA, okay, and OB. Correct? So OA and OB would be rays starting from O, okay, and at this interface, since the rays are going from a denser medium, this is going to be your denser medium, to a rarer medium, the rays would be bending away from the normal. But in case of ray OA, it is going in the direction of normal, so it will be going undeflected, as we have studied. Ray OA would be going undeflected as it is going along the normal, okay. But in case of ray OB, this ray is going to be refracted away from the normal. That is, angle of incidence over here will be smaller than the angle of refraction. Okay. So what is going to happen over here is these rays are going to appear to diverge from point I. So if a person is standing outside and looking, okay, he will see that, supposing your eye is over here or your eye is over here, that person will see that this ray has come from this point I, and that would be the virtual image of O. Okay, what you see from top, what you see from that rarer medium would be nothing but a virtual image of this O. That means, supposing a coin is lying over here, that coin would appear to be over here at point I. Okay, so clearly the apparent depth, so this basically the depth at which you see the object, okay, is called as the apparent depth, and the depth at which your object is actually placed, that is the real depth. Okay, so the apparent depth is AI over here, okay, is smaller than the real depth, that is AO. Okay, so apparent depth is AI, which is smaller than the real depth, which is AO. Okay, which is basically the object, depth of the object which is placed at the bottom of the tank, okay, which appears to be raised. Okay, so now here the refractive index of this medium, that is water in this case, okay, can be determined using this apparent depth and the real depth. Okay, so refractive index is given by the real depth, the ratio of real depth to the apparent depth. Okay, so refractive index of any medium, okay, other than vacuum, is always greater than unity. So the apparent depth is always less than the real depth. Okay, you can find this out obviously from here. Apparent depth will be equal to real depth upon refractive index. So from here you can see that refractive index of any medium is greater than unity. It is always more than unity, correct? No, so it will be obviously the apparent depth will be smaller than the real depth. And the height through which an object appears to be raised in the denser medium is called as the normal shift. So this length, it is from I to O, this is called as the normal shift. Okay, so the height through which the object appears to be raised in the denser medium is called as the normal shift. So what will be normal shift? If you want to find out the formula for normal shift, what will be normal shift? Normal shift, which is IO over here, will be the real depth, that is AO, minus the apparent depth, that is AI. Okay, so AO minus the apparent depth in terms of refractive index can be written as the real depth, that is AO here, this formula. The apparent depth can be written as the real depth, that is AO, divided by the refractive index of the second medium, that is mu. Okay, so if I remove AO common, it will be 1 minus 1 upon mu. Okay, and AO over here, if we consider, okay, as T, let's take it as T, that is the real depth. Okay, so it will be T into 1 minus 1 upon mu. This is going to be the formula for normal shift, which is denoted by D. So it is quite clear from this formula that the normal shift in a position of an object when seen through a denser medium, okay, depends upon two factors. One is the real depth, that is T, or the thickness of the refracting medium, and the second thing is the refractive index of the denser medium. Okay, so higher the value of the refractive index of denser medium, greater will be the apparent shift, that is D. Okay, the normal shift or the apparent shift would be greater. The second practical application of refraction is that the apparent shift in the position of sun at sunrise and sunset. It is said that the sun appears to rise early by 2 minutes and it appears to set late by 2 minutes. So they say that the length of the day increases to about 4 minutes due to this apparent shift in the position of the sun. Okay, so why does this happen? This also has the same reason, that is refraction of light. So what exactly happens over here is that due to the atmospheric refraction, so since we know that the earth has different layers of atmosphere, so due to this atmospheric refraction, the sun is visible to us before the actual sunrise and seen for some time after the actual sunset. Okay, so how exactly this happens? So with altitude, the density and hence the refractive index of air layers decreases. So as you go away from the Earth's surface, the refractive index of the layers of the Earth's atmosphere, okay, would go on decreasing. So N1 will have the highest, will be the more denser, okay, then N2, then N3. Okay, so N3 is going to be the least dense, optically dense medium. So the optical density as you move away from the Earth's surface goes on decreasing. So the light rays starting from the sun, let's say the position is S. The sun is now below the horizon. Okay, so the rays which are coming to the atmosphere from this position of the sun below the horizon, that is S, okay, continuously travel from rarer to denser, rarer to denser, rarer to denser as it comes towards the Earth's surface. So as it is traveling from rarer to denser, it will continuously start bending towards the normal because it is traveling from rarer to denser medium. Okay, so as it is coming from the sun and it is entering in the Earth's atmosphere, it is coming towards the Earth's surface, it is going to travel from a rarer to a denser medium and hence it is going to bend towards the normal. So however, an observer sees an object in the direction of the rays reaching his eyes. That means the rays are going to reach his eyes in this direction, correct? So if you produce this rays which is reaching the observer's eyes behind, okay, that would create an apparent image or the virtual image of the sun. Okay, so that is how this apparent position of the sun H dash is marked. Okay, so if you produce this rays which is coming from the sun behind straight, okay, that is going to give you the apparent position of the sun. So to an observer standing on the earth's surface, the sun, which is actually at the position of S, which is below the horizon, okay, appears in the position S dash, that is S dash over here, okay, which is above the horizon. So the apparent shift in the direction of sun is about 0.5 degrees. That is the shift between the actual position and the apparent position of the sun is about 0.5 degrees. Thus, the sun appears to rise early by 2 minutes, and for the same reason, it appears to set late by 2 minutes. Okay, so this increases the length of the day by about 4 minutes. So this is another practical application of refraction of light.